Welcome to JRL Studio Creations.
Today I wanted to do a special look at the Enchiridion. Now, I absolutely love this book. It's one of my favorite books I've ever made, and it's actually heavy. This thing is probably about, well, it's heavy. I'd say it's a couple pounds. Now, I guess the really cool part about this is a real book. So the paper that was used to make this is actually an 11 by 17 inch paper. I folded it in half, dipped it in some coffee stain, and when it dried out, it made these actually. These are just a whole bunch of them. I put them in like stacks of 4. This is a stack of 3, but I put them in stacks of 4, put holes in them, stitched them together along these seams, and that's what gave this really, really amazing look of the wavy lines. Because when they all stitched together and pressed flat, they just naturally formed in those wavy lines, which I really, really love. It is made in the style of a medieval book binding, and you can open it up just like a normal book. In fact, what's really cool about it is I actually have drawings on the inside. Not fully, but like I have a drawing of the land of Oo, and also a drawing that I came up with myself. I pieced together many different images and came up with this. What's really cool about this too, since I have this open right here, is that's where the batteries are hidden. There's some little screws right here that I can open up and the flap comes up and I can actually open this up. I hid all the electronics in this right here. So I can turn on the lights or also the internal parts and different things like that. There's many different settings. This has, I think, 9 different settings. Oh yeah, so it's super, super cool. And I'll turn it off in a sec. There we go. And these are made with spoons, of course. And then this is just made with a flattened out piece of like 90-degree angle. Now, if I open this up, which is actually really cool because yes, it opens up. Right here, you notice that there's thickness to this, right? There's thickness to this, there's thickness to this, and yet it's still just a normal book, right? The hardest part I think about this is I had to think, how do I make this thin and still work just like the movie or just like the TV series? And that was a little bit of a challenge. I think one of the things that I can show you right here, I think one of the hardest things about this was making it so it was flat and flush, and so it also could open up. So if I come down here, you can see that these gems are inset. That makes it so that when I slide this to unlock it, it can actually go over the top of them and not interfere. Now when I open this up, yep, woohoo! You have these parts right here that are actually inset as well. And then right there, there's also dimension in that and depth. Now we're going to turn this on and you can see what it's like. That's what it looks like when the gems are not in place and it turns on. So again, super thin, but still have dimension. This is really, really cool. Here's what the gems, I keep the gems in. When I open it up, I can take all the gems out. Now, of course, these gems have to be half gems in order to fit in place. But that still doesn't make a difference. I mean, it's really nice. Once they're all set in place, it's just like the movie. Yeah, and so I have all these different gems that I made. And the gems that you see on here are actually made by hand. I did these by sanding them down with some, actually, resin. All right, I'll turn this off. I think the hard part with this is when I've stored this, if this is shut, you can't tell that the lights are on. And so I have had the batteries go dead a couple times because I forgot to turn off this light. Which also, let me show you this. This is super cool. That button is actually what turns off that. I have 2 electronics in here. One for these on the bottom. And then if I press it again, so if I do it fast, It'll turn on that one over there. Yeah. All right, so let's turn that off. Boop. Also, I don't know if many of you noticed, but this is Billy's nose. Yeah, from the TV series. Yeah, so let's talk about this edge. I made this in a way that if the metal had been put on, that it would line up with the design that's on there, so you can see. But also, if it was torn off, these holes actually align in spots that it was torn off, as if this piece was torn off. It also has the outline of where one would have been, and the dirt that would have accumulated that would have been underneath it. There's just a level of detail like that that I really, really like in books like this, or doing things like this, recreating things in real life. So I wanted to make this book as accurate as possible to the TV series, and so I did get an image, and I made it as close as I could to the image. For instance, if you look at the bottom right here, you can see that even the papers and the actual ribbons are actually all in the same spot. It's the same way with the other sides. See? And even the top. Oop. The top. Like that. So that's just the sides. Now let's look onto the edge. The edge was a little bit interesting because when I was binding it, these are not in equal spaces, which is very fascinating with the binding, because most bindings have equal spacing in them that I've seen, and so these ones are not, but it's super cool. Again, we open this up. When we turn this on, this has power, and the electronics are mainly back underneath that area, and then it comes with a wire, goes through this part, and then goes to the back. I'd like to talk about the different layering of the Enchiridion. Now, right here you can see that this is fairly thick. This actually has 3 layers in the back, 3 layers on the front as well. Now, the 3 layers that you can see are right here. 1, 2, 3. And it's really interesting because on the inside, it's actually a different material than this outside right here. This is a clipboard actually, and that is actually the bottom layer that you're looking at right now. This is the bottom layer, the second layer, third layer. In here, it's a little bit different. This is the bottom layer. And then if you think of this circle as its own little thing all by itself, it has the thickness of 2 up to this point. So 1, 2, and then the third layer right here clips into that. That's actually magnetic, so it can help hold it in place. This is where it gets a little bit interesting, because if you notice, this bottom layer actually has holes that have been put into it. Those holes themselves hold the electronics. So the bottom layer holds the electronics. And then this is a sandwiched layer right there. So the bottom and the electronics. I put some resin in here to make this stronger. Behind there, it looks like there's another board. That's actually a piece of paper. That's how thin it got to the back of this right here. But when it lights up, it actually does not shine through because of that piece of paper. Also, this right here helps harden it up so that it wouldn't be floppy in that area. When it comes to the LEDs for the outer gems, they are actually in this layer behind here, and the gems are see-through. Now this rounded piece right here actually is sitting on the first layer, but it actually goes through the second layer. So it's inset. So technically with this shut, it's 4 layers, 2 layers, 3 layers. Thank you so much for joining me on this special look of the Enchiridion. Have a wonderful day, and you are amazing. Bye!